I had just moved to a new city and, trying to meet people and all. I decided to hop back onto Tinder. A few swipes here and there and I matched with this girl. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah seemed cool, pretty chill over texts, liked the same kind of movies, and was into some gaming too. So after a couple of days of texting, we decided to meet up. We met at this little cozy cafe she suggested. It was off the beaten path and kind of rustic, but I figured it was one of those local gems. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at this dimly lit corner table. The date started off pretty normal. Casual chit-chat, the usual get-to-know-you kind of talk. But as the evening went on, things started to get a bit off. She kept looking over her shoulder, like she was nervous or something. I tried to ignore it, thinking maybe she was just not a fan of the spot we were in or something else was on her mind. But then, she started talking about how she believes she's very intuitive and sensitive to energies and that she could tell when someone was going to die. Yeah, that kind of took the conversation to a whole new level. Trying to keep things light, I joked about how I hoped my energy was saying I'd live long. She didn't laugh. Instead, she leaned in closer and whispered that she actually felt a dark aura around us. Not gonna lie, it was creepy, but part of me was also intrigued. But that's when things really took a turn. She started to get really detailed, saying things like how once she had predicted a friend's accident and how she often had dreams that came true. The whole time, her eyes never really met mine. They were kind of unfocused, like she was looking through me. I was beginning to feel really uncomfortable, but before I could say anything, she said she needed to show me something. We left the cafe, and she led me to this old, nearly deserted park. By now it's getting dark, and I'm seriously reconsidering my life choices. She walked me to this secluded bench and began digging through her bag. My heart was pounding because, hell, this was how horror movies start, right? But she just pulled out an old, tattered notebook. She handed it to me, and it was filled with what looked like predictions, names, dates, some crossed out, some not. She pointed to a name that wasn't crossed out, and, I kid you not, it was my full name with that night's date next to it. I felt a chill run down my spine. I asked her what this was supposed to mean, trying to keep my voice steady. She just stared at me, really calm, and said, "It's better if you know what's coming." Nope, that was it for me. I noped out of there so fast, mumbling some excuse about needing to be somewhere. I blocked her number, deleted Tinder, and got back home as fast as I could. Spent the whole night looking over my shoulder, expecting to see her standing in the shadows. The next day, I did some Googling and couldn't find much about her, which freaked me out even more. But nothing happened. I'm still here, obviously. I don't know if it was a sick joke or if she believed what she was saying. But man, that was the last time I met someone from Tinder, without really vetting them first. Let me tell you about the time I decided to give Tinder a real try after swearing off it for months. My friends had been pestering me, saying not every guy on Tinder is a creep or a weirdo. So there I was, back on Tinder, swiping away when I matched with this guy named Jake. He seemed nice enough. Good job, good looks, and could actually hold a conversation. We texted for a few days, and he suggested we go out for dinner at this cozy little restaurant downtown. I agreed, and we met up that Friday night. First impressions. He looked just like his pictures, which was a relief, and he was really charming right off the bat. Dinner went well. We talked about everything. Our jobs, movies, music, you name it. He had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. I was really starting to like him. After dinner, he suggested we take a walk. The restaurant was near a scenic route with lots of little shops and an overlook of the city skyline, so it seemed perfect. As we walked, he got more touchy, casually putting his arm around me, touching my back. I was okay with it at first, but then he started to get a bit too close for comfort. When I tried to subtly step away, he'd pull me closer, making jokes about how I was too pretty to stay away from. Red flags started popping up in my mind, but I tried to brush it off as him being overly flirtatious. We stopped at the overlook, and he leaned in for a kiss. I turned my head, and he ended up kissing my cheek. I laughed nervously and suggested maybe it was time to head back. That's when his demeanor changed completely. He got really quiet and just stared at me for a few seconds that felt like hours. Then he grabbed my arm really hard and said, "Why are you being like this? I thought we were having a good time." I pulled away, telling him he was hurting me. And that's when he finally let go. But his expression was something I'll never forget, like he flipped a switch and became someone else. I quickly made up an excuse about needing to get home early and started walking fast towards the more populated streets. He followed me at first, trying to apologize, saying he didn't mean to scare me, that he just liked me a lot and got carried away. I didn't stop, didn't look back, just kept walking until I saw a group of people I could stick close to. I heard his footsteps fall away, but I didn't feel safe until I was in my car and locked the doors. The next day, I got a bunch of texts from him, some apologetic, some angry. I blocked him everywhere I could think of. Phone, all socials, even had to change some privacy settings on my accounts because he found ways to message me. Talked to my friends about it, and one of them, who's kind of a sleuth, decided to dig a bit deeper into this guy. Turns out, I wasn't the first he'd done this to. There were a couple of similar stories floating around from other women who encountered him. I reported him on Tinder, told them what I knew, but I don't know if anything ever came of it. It took me a long time to feel safe going out with anyone I met online again. After swearing off dating apps for a while, my buddy convinces me to give it another shot. Not everyone's a psychic weirdo, he says. I laugh, download Tinder again, and match with a girl named Eliza. She's gorgeous, funny, and best of all, seems normal. We chat for a few days, and she suggests we should meet at a local bar for drinks. I arrive early, grab a seat at the bar, and order a drink to calm the nerves. Eliza walks in, and she's even more stunning in person. We hit it off immediately, laughing and talking like we've known each other for years. After a couple of hours, she suggests we head to her place, which isn't far. Things seem to be going well, correct? Actually, that's not the case. We get to her apartment, and it's filled with mannequins. Like dozens of them everywhere. Some are dressed up, some just parts scattered around, and all of them are freakishly lifelike. She sees my face and laughs, saying she's a sculptor and works with lifelike figures for art installations. "They're just dolls," she assures me, giving one of them a pat on the head, trying to be cool about it because, hey, artists are quirky, right? We sit down, continue our conversation, and she goes to make us some drinks. That's when I notice one of the mannequins has what looks like a real human tattoo, one I recognize. It was a small, distinct design, a little cat with a crown, which a friend of mine had inked in college. And I knew for a fact he'd disappeared a few months ago, which had been big local news. I'm staring at this thing, trying to convince myself it's just a coincidence when Eliza comes back. She notices I'm pale and asks if I'm all right. I nod, but then, stupidly, or maybe because I wanted to confront the fear, I ask her about the tattoo on the mannequin. Her demeanor changes instantly. She goes from cheerful to cold, her smile dropping. "Oh, that? I find inspiration in real people sometimes," she says, her tone casual, too casual. But her eyes, they're not meeting mine anymore. That was all the red flags I needed. I made up an excuse about an early morning meeting, practically ran out of her apartment, and once again blocked the number, deleted the app, and promised myself that this time I was done for good. I matched with a woman named Ava, who had a profile that seemed almost too good to be true. Intelligent, beautiful, and she had a sense of humor that matched mine perfectly. We exchanged messages for a week, and finally she suggested we meet for dinner at a small, obscure restaurant she claimed was her absolute favorite. I arrived a bit early and waited. The place was quaint, dimly lit, with old-fashioned decor. It had a mysterious, almost gothic vibe. Ava walked in, and she was just as enchanting in person. Dinner started off wonderfully. We talked about everything from books to our craziest life experiences. Halfway through the dinner, she excused herself to use the restroom. She was gone for a bit longer than seemed normal, but I brushed it off, thinking maybe she got a call or something. When she came back, she seemed flustered, her cheerful demeanor slightly off. She apologized and said she wasn't feeling well all of a sudden. Concerned, I asked if she wanted to leave or needed help, but she insisted on staying to finish dinner. We continued talking, but I noticed she kept glancing towards the back of the restaurant, towards the hallway that led to the restrooms. Her eyes looked worried, almost scared. As we were wrapping up, she finally told me in a low, hurried tone that she thought someone was watching her from the back whenever she went to the restroom. She described feeling like she was being followed back to our table by someone she couldn't see in the mirrors, but could feel just behind her. Honestly, I was skeptical but concerned for her comfort. I suggested we leave immediately, and she agreed with visible relief. As we stood to leave, I glanced toward the back hallway, and for a split second I thought I saw a shadow move just at the edge of my vision. It was probably just a trick of the light, but it gave me chills. We hurried out, and I walked her to her car. She was visibly shaking as she unlocked her car, and before she got in, she turned to thank me, her face pale but sincere. "I think you just saved my life," she said, half joking but half serious. We hugged briefly, and she drove off. I stood there for a moment, looking back at the restaurant. The feeling of being watched crept over me, and I quickly left, feeling an unexplainable urge to get as far away as possible. We texted a few times after that night. She thanked me again for being there, but gradually our conversation died down. She deactivated her Tinder soon after, and I lost touch with her. Sometimes I pass by that restaurant, and every single time a chill runs down my spine as I quicken my pace. Thank you for watching. If you found these stories gripping, don't forget to subscribe for more spine-tingling content. For another hair-raising tale, check out our suggested video. And if you're hungry for more eerie encounters, dive into our playlist featuring similar chilling narratives.